The presenting sponsor of OnEducation is Participate. Lately, teachers from all over have been working together to find new approaches to provide quality remote education. Participate's sister company, Participate Learning, presents United We Teach, a global gathering place for educators to share distance learning resources as we navigate these strange times. For these resources and more, visit participate.com/oneducation.
If you want to create a Bitmoji classroom, just friggin' do it.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn. Welcome to OnEducation, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss the return to school for many districts, the pros and cons of the Bitmoji classroom. And our guest this week is amazing educator and friend of the podcast, Steve Isaacs.
So I was just telling you, it's like 84, 85 degrees in my house. It is
toasty.
Hot. Hot. It's like a sweat lodge in my office.
So no air conditioning.
For 5 days. There apparently I haven't really had like proper air conditioning almost all of August. It got repaired once, and then it stopped working, and then people came back 3-4 days later and fixed a part, and then they obviously broke something else, and the Freon all leaked out of the compressor. Or the condenser, I guess is the word. So they have to come tomorrow and do whatever they call a leak test to find out where the Freon is leaking out. And then they got to refill the Freon. And oh my God, Nightmare. It is so hot. So, and I had to do a 24-hour live stream. So that is when you do. I did not sleep for 39 hours. I played video games with Steve.
Wow.
And a bunch of other, Steve Isaacs and a bunch of other people, and raised $2,700 for charity. All in a office that was like 20 or I was going to say it in Celsius, 27 Celsius. Like it was in the mid 80s.
Wow.
The entire time I was streaming.
That is baking.
So hot.
Yeah, that's super uncomfortable. I bet humid too.
It was awful.
Yes.
It was pretty bad. So, but what a wild weekend. I'm still recovering. I'm still like feeling a little weird, tired, and like stuff like that. But you know, $2,700 is a lot of money. We launched my Minecraft server. Which is pretty exciting. So I've been working on getting this server ready for a few months now, and it's launched. We're going to actually put the allow list request in the show notes. So listen, friends, if you want to play Minecraft and you're an educator and you're listening right now and you just want a place where you can play, just play. Like we say it all the time, you know, that the biggest barrier, the largest barrier in my mind to educators learning about how to use Minecraft in the classroom is that they just don't have the space to play. Come play. You know, if you're an educator, the allow list link is in the show notes. Click on the allow list link, fill out the form. I'll take a look at it. You can ping me on Twitter to tell me that you did it. And come play Minecraft with us. We have an awesome set of servers. There's a creative server and a survival server. It's a ton of fun. There's always people on it. And there's lots going on. There's a Discord server as well that you can chat with people. So please, you know, come and play. Glen, come play Minecraft with us.
I will at some point. I will. I was just thinking about that barrier to entry, not only to just the concept of game-based learning. And I think a lot of times people haven't experienced what is the educational side of games. And so they see games as an entertainment form, which it is, but they haven't seen them in this type of form. And when you are around other educators in this, whether it be in the server or you're actually, you know, taking in videos as far as from YouTube or whatever you're actually doing, as far as you're going to get ideas And then those ideas will spawn into what actually fits for your classroom, your students, your specific lessons that you're thinking about, because that's kind of it will spark those things. But without actually going and experiencing, it's really difficult to describe. Whenever you're like, for example, my parents, if I would ever try to describe Minecraft to them, they're not video game people and they have no idea what it is. They've seen the little figurines, whatever it might be. It's really difficult to explain until you're in the environment doing the stuff. And then in this case, being able to do it with a bunch, being able to experience it with a bunch of other educators, I think is a great platform.
You nailed it. I have this in the notes. I don't know if there's anything like this in the States, and you were a little like thrown off when I told you about it, so I'm assuming that there might not be. But so Ontario educators will know what I'm talking about, and I'm not sure if this is anywhere in Canada does this, but in Ontario, if you are a public service employee, if you are essentially paid by the government, which is fire, health, utilities, all paid from taxes, right? And education is also paid from taxes. If you make more than $100,000 a year, your name is published in what they call it, the Sunshine List. Which is, I guess, to insinuate that you've got it made. Life is good, and I got news for people. But anyways, so there's always been educators in the Sunshine List because higher level administrators and stuff like that will tend to make $100,000 a year, but this is mostly used to keep and I was telling Glenn, this is mostly used to keep public sector executives honest, so they don't pay themselves fat bonuses and so the big article that always comes out related to the Sunshine List in the newspaper is the CEO of Ontario Hydro or something like that gets paid $6.8 million. Some hospital CEO gets paid $1.5 million or some nonsense like that, right?
Yeah.
And those end up breaking and because it's public.
Yes.
But what happened this year is unique. So with the combined collective bargaining agreement that was started in the spring, and the new raises that kicked in for educators in August just before they go back to school, what has happened is all of the educators that are what's called A4 in Ontario, which is the maximum amount of senior years, of service, or no, it's 10 years at A4. So A4 is your level of extra education. Yeah. So this is your university credits that you would go and get additional credits. In Ontario, we've talked about this a little bit before. We talked about, they're called AQs in Ontario, additional qualifications.
So the highest level of the lanes, we call it lanes as far as the things. Okay.
So A4 is the max level of all of that, and then 10 years is where the pay scale tops out. Okay. So when you're A4 at 10 years, that's the most you can possibly get paid. Well, all of those A4 at 10 years now make just over $100,000.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So that's thousands of teachers are now on the Sunshine List.
Wow. Congratulations.
And Cheryl is one of them. So that's what we were talking about, is that Cheryl's name is now public because she is A4 10. She's actually 16 years teaching. Yeah. But she makes just over $100,000, and it brought up a lot of really interesting conversations, between us, but also you and I, and then between Cheryl and I. We were talking about it because there are tons of educators in the United States that are listening to me now and just screaming at their
what?
audio player of choice that they've been teaching for 25 years and taken university credits
maxed out,
multiple a year, and still make $55,000 a year.
Yeah. I mean, some states average salary is still in the low 30s. So that's just, that seems like unbelievable. Though I know that there are states, California, some of the East Coast states, that their salary grids would be probably comparable to that. But it's also because it is super expensive, obviously, to live in these places. But so I don't know as far as cost of living, what that equals out.
Yeah, like imagine being an educator and living right in like Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't even know how people do it.
But I think, live if you weren't making $100,000 a year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that live there, commute in, from New Jersey or from wherever else. So it's super interesting, and congrats to all those educators, because maybe one day the United States with a different president.
maybe you'll have your own. Be possible. I mean, it's. Well, I went down a rabbit hole thinking about this a little, which is why it's still on here, because I was thinking about like the culture of the United States, where like Americans, the monolithic Americans, right? The royal we, let's say, wants transparency and everything to be out in the open, but also wants privacy and not wanting to share to share things like how much people get paid. Well, for example,
in public education, we do that too, but it's not printed like that. I mean, this was an interest. I went to that link, and it's interesting. But all of our,
that's an official government link. Like we'll put it in the show notes so you can see.
All of our salaries are public knowledge. Yeah. And I think in some newspapers, I'm not exactly sure, in some states, they may post the grids or the person and then what salary they are actually specifically making each year. So you can go look up exactly what I made, whatever year, because it is public domain, as you described. It's very similar in that way. I just thought it was interesting, and interesting that they call it the Sunshine List.
Yeah, and I mean, there'll be a newspaper, every year there's a newspaper article where they publish like the juicy ones, the ones that, like I said, are interesting, the ones they want to,
millions.
The ones they want to like out and make sure people know that, so-and-so took a $500,000 bonus, but still did all of these stupid mistakes or something like that.
You know what I was
right?
just thinking about, though, Mike? This is, you were just describing hospital employees because obviously it's a public sector, and in the United States it isn't. It's not in the United States. And the energy sector, that was interesting too. I was like, oh, all of our energy is privatized, so that is a little bit foreign. But you know what is interesting? Our highest paid, and I was just talking to Nicole about this, and I'm sure I'll piss some people off when I say this, but I don't care. Our highest public employees in the United States, you know who they are? Like some of the highest. I'm sure that there's some that I'm not thinking of right now, but you know who they actually are?
No.
College football coaches.
Yeah.
So, like for the University of Alabama, their head football coach, salary in the millions. So it's like, it's a really weird, and I don't understand it, that why we couldn't, as educators, be in the 100,000 list, and those kinds of things, especially with, at the end, like you just described, as far as the end and all those years of service. And yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And like I just was saying, I thought it was interesting that our college football coaches are the ones that are the most lucrative careers in the public sector. So maybe someone else will throw out some other public sector jobs in the United States that are actually really highly paid. But even our president doesn't make, as far as the amount of money that they make, I think they make $250,000. So it's not like a huge salary that they actually make. But it's interesting. Anyway,
it's funny when I'm on this, I'm in the rabbit hole again. I'm looking at the two highest paid public sector employees, according to this in 2019, were both Ontario Power Generation, OPG, which is like our utilities, our power utility,
Like CEOs or?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
$938,000. So not in the millions. And this wouldn't be like benefits or bonuses or anything like that, I don't think.
Okay.
And then there's like hospitals. I'm seeing crown agencies, which would be like governmental departments. University people are all, high five figures. Then, and then there's like a bunch of university people are in the high five figures. You don't really get into like public school boards, school district people probably till you get into like the 200,000s.
So, Mike, I was wrong. I just Googled. Okay. Nick Saban, University of Alabama football coach. I knew it was the University of Alabama football coach, but I forgot his name. Okay, 11.1 million. The second most highest paid coach, I was actually wrong. It's actually a basketball coach for the University of Kentucky. So just imagine that too, the whole controversy of college football or in basketball players and so on and so forth that get paid nothing except for their college tuition. Oh, we're going to pay your education, whatever that amount is.
It's a
this
racket.
guy, John Calipari, made $7.75 million last year.
Life is good, man.
Dude, there's something wrong with that. I think that's so wrong. Anyway, it's a different discussion for a different day, but I thought it was interesting.
I clearly missed my calling. I should have been a basketball coach.
I know.
Right?
A very highly paid one.
5'5", but that doesn't. We're gonna not let. Like, I could do anything. They're not gonna let.
No one's
that's
gonna.
just a technicality.
Yeah, no one's gonna stop you from.
No. Nothing stops me. That's awesome. So yeah, Cheryl's on the Sunshine List. It's very cool.
Awesome. So yeah, I wanted to talk about a few weeks ago. I actually legitimately asked the question, and I know people probably thought I was being sarcastic, and I seriously wasn't. But I wanted to know what was the buzz about this thing called the Bitmoji classroom. And the reason why I wanted to know, honestly, was because a teacher reached out and asked. They saw the Bitmoji classroom, and they wanted me to teach them how to set it up. And I heard Bitmoji Classroom. I'm like thinking Google Classroom, Schoology. Is it a new LMS? Bitmoji's in it. I was like, help us. And then I saw something, that someone had posted that was like the Bitmoji Classroom thing, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. I looked at it and I'm like, I don't understand, I guess. So I asked, like, what is this and what's the controversy? Kind of like, give me some things. So I think people thought I was being sarcastic because there was some people right away like defending it.
So what is it? Because I actually am still like super confused.
So the best way I can describe it is a in my mind, it looks like a header for a digital space. Let's call it, we used to call them, I think I did a session on this about 8-9 years ago when Google Slides came out. And we did a session on creating interactive slides, right, to take you to all kinds of different things. So it would be an image with a bunch of images inside of it, right? Click here, and you click it, and it's kind of like a web page. Let's call it a web page, interactive web page. Except in this case, this header thing that you can put on your website, or I guess inside of your LMS too, directs you to their syllabus or a welcome message, right? But the cutesy part is that there's a Bitmoji character of the teacher inside of there. Does that make sense? So it's their classroom. Like it's since I can't be in my physical space, that's what I'm thinking. That's what these people are saying. They're going to recreate their physical space in kind of this 2D world with their Bitmoji character. And then you click here for the welcome message, click here for the syllabus, and so on and so forth. So I didn't get, number one, what the controversy was, and number two, why it's so popular. Like, that's the two things I was just like, okay, that's not anything except for the little Bitmoji character, as far as adding it into the thing, I didn't really think it was something like super innovative, but I think a lot of people were spending a lot of time, and maybe that was a controversy. They were spending a whole bunch of time on it, and maybe they, the controversial part was like, you should be doing this other thing or whatever it might be. So I didn't know one thing or the other, but I definitely wanted to bring it up because I didn't know if you had heard of it, number one. And number two, I was just like, I don't even know, this summer, actually this year has been...
Tell us about this year, Glenn. Tell us about this year.
Throughout the world
yeah,
has been insane and a whole bunch of other adjectives.
I was going to say, what word are you going to use
People
for this?
have used all kinds of other more descriptive adjectives to describe this year and the things that have gone awry, And then
we haven't even had a presidential election yet, friend.
And November hasn't even come. But
strap in, homie.
No, dude, already the beginning of the year, the COVID, everybody having to leave school, then all of the things that then occurred towards the end of the year, and all of our Black Lives Matter movement, and now all of us kind of reframing, kind of rethinking everything that we ever did, and in a good way, and going like, we need to be better people, which is just amazing. Like, I love that out of all of this crap has come all of this good, as really started a legitimate movement that feels different than anything else as far as in the past. But yet there's this Bitmoji controversy about this thing. And I'm like, I don't care about if you decide to go ahead and do that. Now, I'll tell you what though, Mike, I'm not going to be helping anybody with this. This is not something that's on my top of my priority list. If people want to go ahead and explore, how to create engaging lessons, and make sure that they get student voice and choice, game-based learning, whatever it might be that they're like passionate about. How do I teach in a virtual setting, discussions? How do I manage all of these things? Yes, let's talk about those things. But it just seemed kind of like a side conversation. There's a station or a channel that I watch on TV. This kind of reminded me of this, that I call trash TV. Do you ever watch Bravo? Do you know the channel Bravo?
Well, so we have Bravo up here, but I'm not sure if it's the same or not. But yeah.
I'm sure it is. Okay, so anyway, Bravo is Glenn Irvin's pets, no, not a pet peeve. My dirty secret, let's call it. I watched tons of shows on Bravo, right?
Great.
Yes, and they are trash. I'm telling you right now, it is trash TV to the ultimate thing. And this felt like one of those side topics where we like to get distracted about things, where it's like, nah, let's redirect our things to the really important things that are actually going on right now that are right in front of our faces, including the topics that we're about to talk about just in a sec. Instead of this kind of side but many people like me still watch Bravo and still want the Bitmoji classroom and want to talk about it, whether for or against it. So anyway, I wanted to make sure we brought it up, and I know we really didn't go anywhere with that. But I think we do this a lot, though. Don't you think? We do this a lot in education. We get distracted really easily by really stupid things. Yeah. And even by the distraction, I even can call it this. We even tend to put our money and time and investment in these weird things that truly will never make a difference in student learning or student connection, student relationship, those kinds of things. But we tend to, and maybe it's a human nature thing. That's the reason maybe why Bravo TV is so popular. It's a human nature thing. We want to see this train wrecks. That's where, this people yelling at each other all crazy, and it's all super fake.
The Gypsy Wedding Show, is that on Bravo?
Probably. Real Housewives is yes, I watch many of those shows. But anyway.
The dog the dog show competition people.
Probably.
Not like the actual like competition, but like
But
the show about the people.
Yeah, the people. Yeah.
That's high quality content.
Exactly, high
right there.
quality. So there you go.
Listen,
you learned something about me today.
Yeah, great. So let me talk
wrap
for
it
a
up.
second to if you want to create a Bitmoji classroom, just friggin' do it.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn what you do. I really don't. And you know what? To the idiots that care what other people are doing, just please stop caring about what other people are doing with their friggin' Bitmoji classrooms. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. If they think that their students will love it, who the hell cares? Why do we care about? Why is this the shit that we choose to care about? I don't understand. I don't understand why we decide that this is what we need to. This is the hill we need to die on. Is Bitmoji classrooms? Give your freaking heads a shake, people. It doesn't matter. Make your Bitmoji classrooms. Don't make them. But please don't go be a keyboard warrior on Twitter about it. It doesn't matter. It matters so little. You guys down there, you have the most consequential election in human history. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just matter to you either. It matters to the whole freaking world.
Big time.
What happens this fall. And so if I have to listen to one more knucklehead talk about Bitmoji classrooms like it's going to end someone's class or in any possible way affect your class, which it's not, I'm just going to lose it because it just doesn't matter. Just let people do this, this whatever this is. I want to say it's nonsense. I just don't care.
Yeah. Yep.
And you shouldn't either. It's just like, tons of other things. If people want to decorate their classrooms like Harry Potter classrooms, let them go and do it.
Yeah, remember that?
Who cares?
Yep.
What do you care? What do you care? And I'm sorry if that makes you feel bad because you don't have 20 grand to go and buy, but it's like, let them just go do it. What does it matter to you?
I'm sorry if
Get
you don't
over
have 20
it, people.
grand.
Oh my God.
I hope that lady
the
did
things we
spend 20 grand.
choose to dig our heels in about when there are so many other things going on in this absolute dumpster fire of a year.
Ooh.
I mean, the Bitmoji classrooms needs to be at the bottom of your list
of the priorities.
Please. Like, not even there. Like let's recalibrate your priority list if you're tweeting about how bad Bitmoji classrooms are. Maybe they're bad, but you know what? Don't do it then. Just don't do it. Cool? Are we okay now?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Oh my God, I'm going to lose it.
I'm talking about things that do matter. A whole bunch of schools are either have already started, because there's been schools that have already been instantly shut down, or are about to start like we are. And a lot of school boards have made decisions whether or not they're going to go back fully. Are they going to have some sort of hybrid model, or are they going to go virtually? And I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because in my local district, they decided to go ahead and the local school board to go full face-to-face start. And it was based upon our governor basically gave back the local control to, give back local control and said, we're going to give you the latest data. We're going to support your decisions. And in other words, by supporting them is financially. So whatever types of equipment to make sure that this happens safely, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And they decided to do that. And my goodness, it felt like I've talked to several colleagues and of course my wife works there too. And it felt like kind of like when somebody really punches you hard in the gut, and it hurts for an extended period of time where you just feel kind of sick for a while. Every time you kind of think back to like, oh, what is this actually going to mean? And so definitely anxiety levels are up. So we're kind of looking, okay, let's look throughout the country, because in Minnesota, we don't start like you guys until after this Labor Day. So there are places throughout the country that have already started, and some of them, like we talked about in a previous podcast, for example, in Georgia, where they had to shut the school down.
Didn't go well in Georgia. Didn't go well.
We have another article here that I have in Nebraska, where a bunch of teachers got sick, and enough teachers got sick that they had to shut the school down. There's not enough teachers. We had to shut it down.
Yeah.
And so it brings a lot of anxiety, and
you didn't go. You guys were like super. You were kind of like me, like you two. Like my wife doesn't have a problem going out now, a little bit, but I'm still like, I'm in my house.
Yeah, many of us.
And you didn't leave much either.
No, we talked about it on the podcast. You were asking me like, where do you get stuff? I'm like, we have groceries delivered. We're trying to do everything that we possibly can. And it was giving me, like I talked about before, I was really getting anxious and really angry at people that weren't wearing their masks back before the mask mandate happened here in Minnesota. And now we're going to go back to a place, in our school has 400 plus students per class, and we have 4 grades. So we have more than 1,600 students in a building, 100 teachers, specifically teachers, hundreds more personnel, whether it be administrative, we're talking about assistants, paraprofessionals, custodians, our awesome, amazing cooks, and bus drivers, and everybody else that's associated with the school. And we're all going back, and it's like, and at this point, Mike, if we look back at the data from March, when we decided to just go virtual, the whole kind of the country was moving towards that. There was way less cases. That's what I'm saying. It was like, oh my God, okay, there was way less cases then. We were trying to do everything we could this summer and stayed away from everybody. We did all the things we were supposed to do. And I'm feeling anxious.
It's so much worse now than it was in the spring.
Yeah,
it's
big time.
Like,
big time.
I don't understand how it's possibly safer now than it was in March.
So what is crazy is you start feeling anxious for yourself, but then you really start thinking, what about my kids? Like your own kids, not your students, which you can call your kids too. And I totally get that too. But your own kids, where you're like, what should we do? And I know a lot of parents are pulling their kids and just saying, we're just going to go virtually. We can't, we just can't do this for pre-existing conditions that the parents may have, or the kids may already have, or whatever it might be. Talk about a really crazy, and we knew it was coming as far as the decisions to be made. We just didn't know how we would actually start feeling. So as the weeks start coming, we have basically a few weeks before the start of the school year. I can sense the tension of the educators, but I think even our kids are going to be it's going to be like a hazmat type of environment, Yeah. And those parents or the community members that think that it's going to be what normal school was like, which was a caring, wonderful community where we share things, and you basically become a family, type of thing. It's going to be very sterile, very procedurally based, very much rule based, like kind of very strictly enforced kind of things.
Compliance.
Yeah. And it's not going to, it's those great things that are part of normal type of school. Some of those things will still be there, but it'll be really difficult. There's not going to be, like we talked about, the hugs and the, even a handshake or a fist bump with the students, or, or getting close to them and being like, hey, I'm here to support, those type of things. It's going to be very, opposite of that.
And kids doing all that with each other too.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and them, kind of getting together and feeling good, feel whatever might be. It seems crazy. It seems off. But I guess I will be reporting from the front lines, and I'll be telling you how it actually goes. I wanted to make sure that, we included in our show notes the clip from, this, Florida governor. And the quote basically says something to the effect of, he says that if our students are asymptomatic. He's the governor of the state.
I hate this guy
this
so
guy is
much.
just ridiculous. Actually, this is not the governor. It was either the governor or the Department of Education, the lead of the Department of Education in Florida. He said if the student gets symptoms, he gets COVID. Sorry.
I just clicked on the link.
Yeah.
The video has been removed.
Oh, okay. So if the student gets COVID, right? And they are asymptomatic after 24 to 48 hours, he said. 24 to 48 hours. We're going to send them back to school. It's going to be okay. Because kids are fine, he said. Kids are fine. That they're going to be okay, whatever it might be. And so much of the data is now saying we just don't know enough. And you know what we definitely don't know is why we don't know it? We stopped in March and said, yeah, maybe we should take a pause here. And we don't have the data because we haven't got these large groups of people, these young kids, together yet. So talk about, we're definitely going to get some data, we're definitely going to have some data. We're definitely going to have an experiment for many of us as far as, can kids transmit it? Can they transmit it to each other? Will they get really sick? Can kids die at a high rate? Those kinds of things. And it seems like, wow, it's like the last people that we would ever want to experiment with, especially when we know so little. We pretend we know a lot, but we really don't. And that's what, all of the experts, the biggest experts, they always said from the beginning, they said, we will compare this to other things because we know of these types of viruses, these coronaviruses, but we don't know this specific one's, what its inner workings until it starts kind of going throughout the, as far as the country or the world, sorry. So really scary. And I know some other people are feeling the exact same way, and just know that, hey, right here with you. If you want to let us know about what's happening within your school district or anything that you feel, is crazy or that's happening, or no mask, at least we have mask mandates at our school. And we're going to be doing I know that our administration is going to be working tirelessly to try to make it as safe as possible, so I don't blame them at all. They're amazing. They're going to do everything within their power to try to keep us as safe as we possibly can. I just don't know if it's going to be enough, because we're going to do the one thing that we shouldn't do, which is be by each other. When you were walking down the sidewalk, it reminded me of that time, Mike, and then I'll let you go ahead and talk here. I'm sorry. You were talking one day, you were walking down the sidewalk, and it was probably in May, I think, April or May. And you were walking with your kids or with Cheryl, and someone was walking towards you, and they didn't move just a little bit over because they didn't give you your 6 feet, and you were uncomfortable, even though you were outside, whatever it might be, because you knew that you should be uncomfortable. Because that's one thing, at least we know that if you can stay a good distance away from each other, you probably are going to be safe, right? This is the exact opposite. It's like, let's put us all into a building again, and then let's see if the masks and the type of things will go ahead and protect us. And by the way, we're not doing a blended, or kind of a off and on type schedule where we could put half of the students in and then half of the students out. It's going to be the students. The students will be at the school, all of the students. So the spacing, those kinds of things, tough, man.
I have insane levels of conflict with all of this. And I'm scared, I'll be honest. In a lot of, hundreds of different ways. Cheryl's a kindergarten teacher. They are not reducing class sizes in Ontario. She is going to be in a class, the same class she's ever had, with 25-ish kids, little kids.
Yes.
Who touch each other and play around with each other, and some of them will not know how to follow instructions.
No, they're learning all that.
Some of them, there is no K-3 mask mandate. So none of those kids are going to be wearing masks, or at least not be forced to wear masks.
Wow.
And so she has to be in that class. So that's Cheryl.
difficult. Yes.
So that's Cheryl. And then there's Jacob. Jacob, it was supposed to start kindergarten this year.
Yeah.
He's super excited. So, I mean, I'm like, you know, he is one of those kids that loves other kids, loves to like play with them and be around them and be social.
Yes.
He's very social. He will, you know, he's good with the mask. He's super comfortable wearing one. We are going to ask him to wear it all day, every day. We're going to ask his teacher to help us, help her, help him wear the mask. You know, it's not required, but it's strongly suggested. So that's, I'm scared for Jacob, and I'm scared about all of that. And then there's Isaac, who did not do well with distance learning. It's not for him. He does not have, he needs a teacher in him. He needs a class. He needs peers to be successful. He is a very good student. He was not a good student in remote learning. So, you know, we know that so both Jacob and Isaac would be allowed to stay home. Like they've given every parent an option. You can stay home if you want. You can not send your kids to the physical school. They will be taught remotely by teachers. But we know that that's not the best for either of our kids in terms of like their education. Sure. Both of them, I think, need teachers now. So I'm scared about all of that. And then there's me. And this is like the super weird part is that I can do every single thing right. Right?
Yeah.
I can wear masks when I go to the grocery store. I literally do not leave the house. I work from home. I am in an office. I have very little contact with people. And I could still die of this damn thing because I could get it from Cheryl or Jacob
the kids.
Or Isaac, who got it from someone else. I can do everything right, and I could still get sick.
I know.
Isn't
that crazy?
That pisses me off more than anything. And I'm the most vulnerable in our whole family. You know, because I've had I don't have like diabetes or anything like that, which makes you vulnerable. But I've had you know, I've had bronchitis a couple times. I've had lung issues and stuff like that, and that makes your lungs weaker, and you know, that makes it. So I am the most vulnerable person in this whole family, and I could do everything right, and I could still get sick.
Same thing with any of our other vulnerable members, extended members of families. So it's their parents, obviously the kids' parents, and then the grandparents. And
we can't see Cheryl's parents anymore. They've been living at Cheryl's parents' house. Cheryl and our two kids are at Cheryl's parents' house right now because our house is like 88 degrees right now. And so I've been staying here, and they've been there. And they wouldn't be, if this was September, they wouldn't be able to do that. Or at least I don't think they should do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'd be fine with letting they are their own people. They can make decisions. But like once we're back to school, I don't think our kids should be coming in contact with their grandparents again. I think it's too dangerous.
Yeah. It's
so
crazy,
like we're
man.
like at multiple levels. This is scary as hell. And I'm not happy about it, even though and then the last piece of this before we move on and talk to our guest is the idea that we live in Ontario, Canada, and we don't even live in Toronto. We live in an hour and a bit north of Toronto. In Ontario, Canada. We do not live in Miami, Florida.
I know.
We do not live in LA. But all of my friends, a lot of my friends are Americans.
Yeah.
Most of my social circle is American you and Steve and these people I talk to every day, my best friends are all Americans. And my thoughts and my opinions of COVID are clouded by the American experience, even though it is completely different than here.
Yeah.
And I should be significantly less scared than I am in some ways.
Yeah.
We have a very small amount of cases in my region, maybe like 10 or 12, if that. And they're all like contained. They're all contact traced, like the actual director, the regional health director for our whole, I think I've said this before, is my next door neighbor.
That's awesome.
So like he lives right beside us. So like I know if things are bad because, he's right there. But I still have this like tension because everyone I talk to is American.
Yeah.
So I keep having to remind myself, Mike, it's probably going to be okay. There are like hardly any cases in our area at all. Cheryl, where Cheryl teaches, is a little bit worse, but even then it's not like substantially worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're all going to try to figure out what the hell to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be an ongoing discussion. But, we will listen in 8 weeks. We'll be back here and chatting about it, and we'll see what happens, I guess, or not.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll see.
Oh God, dark.
I know.
Let's lighten the load a little bit. When we come back, one of our best friends, Steve Isaacs, will join us. So stay tuned. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Our guest this week doesn't really need an introduction, but I feel socially obligated to offer one anyways. Steve Isaacs joins us on the podcast this week. He's an educator, one of the finest educators on the planet, from New Jersey. And he is, I spend more time with Steve Isaacs than I do with my family these days. Anyways, welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Thanks, Mike. Glenn, good to see you guys.
I'm actually surprised, Steve, that you came on to the show, being how much time you already do spend with Mike.
Yeah, especially
hours
after
and
this
hours
weekend.
and hours. Yes, especially after the marathon of being with each other for really long periods of time, at least virtually.
Yes.
Yes. So how long was that, Steve? How long did we spend together?
That was 24 hours straight, Mike. Without, we both did it. We no napping, no. Maybe an occasional bathroom break or run downstairs to get, another something to drink or a snack. But we were together for 24 hours straight playing games.
What were you guys doing besides playing games? Tell us about it.
Raising money,
yeah.
Oh? Yeah. We raised $2,700 for Extra Life charity, which is a charity that supports children's hospitals specifically. So we raised just under $2,700, which is pretty awesome. Had a lot of big donors.
Yeah, we did.
Had a lot of other just a lot of people came out and donated. Glenn Irvin donated. We had a lot of great donors. And
Mark Otter donated.
Mark Otter donated. Thank you,
Grandma Deb. She took it. She took it, and she overtook Stephen Reed, who was ridiculously generous as well.
Wow.
We had, people are just, I just love when you see the heart that people have when you're doing something like that, because it was really tremendously generous. A lot of the donations, and people really, really were excited to help and behind the cause. So that's really special.
What a reminder that community can be found in any kind of place and in any sort of way, and that it's like when you do something meaningful to people, for people or with people, they respond when you kind of say, okay, we're trying to do this now, can you come and be part of that? And, so, you and I have been streaming almost every day since March. Almost every day. We've taken a little bit of time off, but not very much.
Not much.
And building up this great, professional learning community on the Participate Twitch stream. And, and then so when it comes time for us to say, listen, we want to do this thing, we want to raise some money, we want to play, and it's like, at least, think about who stayed, like Brad Treffler stayed up with us almost the whole time.
Yep.
Mark Henkel stayed up with us quite a bit.
Yep. Eric Leitner did a lot. I mean, Eric Leitner was probably with us as much as he could have, took a short sleep, then had to teach a professional development thing, for 7 hours, and then jumped right back on and was with us till the end. Amanda, I think you might have mentioned her, but like up at 4 a.m. with us after probably going to bed after, midnight, it was great. Becky was with us a lot, and just so many people popping in. Deirdre stopped in, Deirdre Kornstrom, from the Minecraft education team. Gosh, so many. I had a few students. That was really, really fun.
That's super cool.
Yeah, a few former students that, so it's interesting. I used to, my wife and I used to own a computer training and gaming center, and we talk about community, right, Mike? So there, I mean, we created this amazing affinity space for these kids in a town that had nothing to do 20 plus years ago. And these kids, have such fond memories of those days, and a few of them jumped in the stream. One of them we had on voice with us for a while, and it's heartwarming for sure.
Big time.
Pretty incredible. We so pretty exciting. We raised so much money and had so many people, but so let's talk about the streaming for a little bit, I guess. We've been doing this thing every day. And, you had this idea, and I think we both had the idea of the same thing at the same time kind of thing, and it worked out super well that we were able to kind of work together on it. You were kind of trying to teach your kids.
Yep.
I'm trying to teach adults, and, we can kind of do both.
Well, I always... Adults were always in my passion was always to both reach students but also bring in educators and kind of do that co-learning. But it started out I think when I thought I was going to be home for 2 weeks, I sort of made a commitment I'll stream every day for those 2 weeks, so it'll provide something that's worthwhile for all my kids that coincides with what we're learning, because we've been focused on content creation. And when I said that, Mike, you reached out to me and said, hey, let's do this together. And we started planning. And 2 weeks became the rest of the school year, became the whole summer. And now we're just trying to figure out how to keep going, but just alter the hours to keep accommodating our schedule. But you're right. So having kids and adults learning, and that whole idea of what professional development could look like, right? And that's kind of, I think, our mission.
I think Twitch is still a really new space, too. Many people don't even know what it is. I'm talking about adults. Yeah. I'm not talking about kids, because kids know what it is. And for that space to be a place where you can, like you guys just said, have live professional development. And in this case, it's super awesome. It's game-based learning. And you can basically not only watch something, but interact with it too. So that's kind of when I was trying to explain Twitch to my wife, it was actually difficult, because it was it's kind of like TV, except you actually talk to the people that are doing the things. She's like, oh, that's weird. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of weird. But I was like, but it's kind of cool then too, because then you are actually having this dialogue between you and the person. Now, in most cases, it's with video games, but now it's expanded to everything. I mean, the channel or the streams are a huge variety of different things. And why not education? So tell us more about that, because that's really interesting as far as that avenue for people, for you guys to have taken basically a bad situation and turned it on its head, and then been able to say, okay, we're going to use this, though we have a bad situation, we're going to use this stream or this ability, this channel, to be able to go ahead and deliver professional development.
I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I was waiting. I was giving Mike a chance. I figured he might, want to jump in. But, I mean, Mike says it great. Mike always talks about how we're trying to change the paradigm of what professional learning might be like. Now, it works out perfectly for us because we both have this mindset about the importance of learning communities and learning together and building community. That's always been something I've been excited about. Like, you go back to the Twitter chats and such, right? And that also makes me think of right now the esports EDU. Way back, I was involved when they started the chat, and it was kind of a slow growing chat. And then they just recently moved it to Twitch, and it's the perfect space for that. And just like you said, Glenn, the fact they have like 4 people kind of having a conversation, which is a little more exciting than just throwing out Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, and then the chat is lively, and it also allows it to morph into whatever it's supposed to that day. And I think that's what Mike and I find a lot, is that we might start somewhere and we're going to go where the audience kind of also takes us, right? Like they're an active part of what we're going to end up doing. And it's really interesting. And, and we're not, I mean, we'll be the first to tell you very often that we're tinkering around, learning while we go, hopefully modeling what learning could look like, all about constructivist learning. So we're big, again, and that's where that community comes in. Like we've had times where we were working on something and we hit a little bit of a block and somebody in the chat says, oh, why don't you try this? And it, boom, it helps, it gets us on the path, and then we felt like we were all in it together and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you want people to feel like they're part of something. And when people feel like they're part of something, agency, like, so we frame all these things as we talk about with students, right? We talk about agency with students. We talk about, engagement for students. We talk about letting our students learn however they want, whenever they want, right? We talk about our students, feeling empowered. Why in the hell don't we think that any of this stuff applies to adults? I mean, it's just, of course it does. It all applies to adults. I mean, adults need to feel agency in their learning. Adults need to feel engaged. They need to feel empowered. They need to feel like they can express what they've learned in whatever way they feel like they can. And so, when we build, a platform on Participate where people can, type and discuss and like read people's thoughts and then respond to those thoughts, or we have a video where people can watch and then share and talk, or we have a podcast where people can listen and then disseminate that information or share it, or then go back to one of those other sources and continue the conversation. I mean, this is what adults want. And I mean, the idea, just one more thing, the idea, of Twitch is that, 20 years from now, our students are going to be adults, and they are going to be completely comfortable with the way we're doing things now. So we're building, this kind of structure for the future. Yeah.
Did you see Brian Sanders' tweet today? It was something like, I have a new model for professional development. It's called teacher tinker time, or something. And the premise was, let's give teachers time to play and explore and whatever. I think that really gets at the heart of what we're trying to do as well. Because, people are playing along with us. They're learning with us. I mean, when you think of people like Amanda and the amount of time she's dedicating to spending, with us and feeling, I think, pretty pumped about what she's learning and then, expanding upon, and that's refreshing to us. I mean, to me, like, I feed so much off of that. So, I think we have this, especially right now where we're talking about things like remote learning and a flipped model and things like, I don't really want to just talk to nobody and put out a video and then have my kids watch that. It might be effective for delivering content, but not for exciting me about the process, and all that. So, I think that's what's been super cool. And I think we kind of knew that it could be, and I think we're seeing it grow. And I think the more people that start to kind of get exposed to it, because like you said, Glenn, Twitch is new to a lot of people. And in a lot of ways, it's just as easy as, hey, there's a link on Twitter. If I click on it, maybe I'll end up there, because that's really all it takes, to find us. But you're right. Even today, and that might be a good segue to the game study stuff. But Matt Farber was funny because, he's done a gazillion webinars and things. And before we got on today, he said, I've never been on Twitch. Like, what do I have to do? And it was like, no, don't worry. Just be there like you're on Zoom or whatever, and let's do our thing.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is super low for this. So, I mean, you don't got to do anything. You got to do what you've normally done, which is great. Mike
makes it so easy too. Mike sends you a link and says, "Click this, have your camera on and your mic on, and you'll magically be on Twitch. You're a star."
What else is going on, Steve? What else you got? I know, but the audience doesn't know. So let's share all the other stuff that's been happening, because there's happening in the past, and what do you got going on in the future? Because if there's one thing about Steve Isaacs, friends, if you've never met Steve Isaacs or come across him or interacted with him, he's always doing stuff. And there's always lots going on in this dude's world. So so you should definitely share all the cool things that are happening. Yeah,
so thank you. It was, again, this COVID thing opened up a lot of interesting opportunities and it's funny, there were a lot of tweets earlier about people saying things like they didn't want people talking about COVID as presenting opportunities. I don't know if you remember that, and it made me try to watch what I said or something, but I see it as the unanticipated outcome is some positive things, right? So kids were stuck at home, and I've been involved in esports and things, and we early on, Eric Leitner, it started with him having this idea to do a Minecraft COVID build challenges. So he set up like a Flipgrid environment, and then he invited me and Kathy in to work with him, and we added a number of challenges. So we ended up with 6 of these challenges, and then we NASEF, who was also looking to kind of shift their thinking at this time to building community and looking at competition and things differently. So we partnered with them and created this great worldwide challenge, which really, it was neat. We got a ton of entries, but then the folks that they're associated with in Mexico City and Mexico got very interested. In fact, Glenn, we almost had you doing some of the video content, I remember.
Yes.
For that. And the affiliates in Mexico got very excited, and we got, I think, it might have been thousands or 1,700 or something entries from Mexico for that challenge. And that was this second running of it, essentially exclusively for Mexico. And then that led us to the Minecraft Face-Off, and Mike's been with us all the way with Participate, supporting the streaming and all that. But we did the NASEF Minecraft Face-Off, which was, again, we had now the NHL interested in engaging their fans at a time when they couldn't go to games. So we did a number of Minecraft build challenges around hockey and got some also great cool. Entries like arenas with playable hockey games, in them and stuff. And then we moved on to what was called the Minecraft Masters, which was kind of modeled after the Lego Masters or some of the robotics type competitions. And we opened it up to entries from around the world. And the idea was going to be to take representatives, the top 4 teams from different countries were going to represent their countries in this live Minecraft Masters event. And turned out we had a team from Mexico, the UK, Egypt, and Israel were the 4 that made it to that part. And we had 4 rounds of live, shoutcasted Minecraft goodness with all sorts of different, challenges that also dealt with redstone and commands and command blocks. And the final one was 2 teams creating fully playable games in a span of 3.5 hours. They had a few days to plan it, but they had to start fresh for the live event. It was fun. We, Mike was behind the wheel of all the production, and I think, had a really good time. And it was neat to work with these teams because some of them you got to know. I mean, we worked with the same teams for like the 4 weeks of that part. And then now coming up, we have a big project with the Rube Goldberg Foundation. So, I had been doing a lot with my students, creating Rube Goldberg machines in both Fortnite Creative and Minecraft. And I always tweet out student work. And I was, for a while, just tagging Rube Goldberg because they were Rube Goldberg machines. Mm-hmm. And Rube Goldberg's granddaughter, Jennifer George, who runs the Rube Goldberg Foundation, reached out essentially to kind of like ask for some guidance, because what they wanted to do, it was their dream to they do this physical. Have you ever seen, it's so neat, the physical Rube Goldberg challenges that are out there that families participated in this year? I mean, really amazing. Mm-hmm. And every year they do one, and it's a pretty big deal. And they, generally speaking, have a live culminating event with the top teams. But they also wanted to do a digital one, and of course the timing couldn't be better for that. So we're now, once again, with NASEF and Participate, doing a whole school. It's going to span the whole school year. We're doing, in the fall, we're having a number of live streamed sessions where we're going to talk about simple machines and talk about how we might be able to make functional simple machines in Minecraft. And each week after one of those sessions, there'll be a contest for people to submit something that utilizes that individual simple machine. And then from January to April will be the full-blown online competition where teams will submit full-on Rube Goldberg machines with a theme. So they'll be doing it both in, some teams will do the physical one, and then we're going to get all these teams to do the digital version in Minecraft.
That's ridiculously awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be great. So we're excited about that.
The building a Rube Goldberg machine is hard, just normally. Building it in Minecraft. It's funny, you've had students who have built them, and it's just unbelievable. So pretty excited about that. It's gonna be wild.
Would you say rad, maybe?
It might be rad. It's an inside joke. You're gonna have to go to twitch.tv/insideparticipate.
That's right.
To learn more. That's twitch.tv/insideparticipate. Twitch.tv/insight.
So, and I also alluded to earlier, and then just we kind of went on to this other stuff, but we're right now doing our second game study, which allows us to watch Mike play a game. And
the way you said that sounds so funny.
Yeah, and
I guess it's true, but
but it's neat. So essentially, each time Mike has been playing the game. So the first one was Gone Home, which Mike hadn't played, and a lot of educators have used Gone Home in really neat ways in the classroom, including Paul Darvasi and Jonathan Spike and others, and they both joined us for that 6-week thing. And we even had one of the developers join us for a couple of sessions, and she was great. Mm-hmm. And that was really neat. So Mike's playing the game, and we're getting insights from the developer and talking about it. And at the same time, in an asynchronous manner, we lead a discussion in the game-based learning community and Participate. So basically each week we play live for an hour and talk about it while it's going, and then also have the ongoing discussion. So right now we're doing A Night in the Woods, and that's a really neat game. A lot of mental health topics and SEL kind of stuff, and in an interesting approach. It's a neat game. I think Mike probably got into it a bit today. I think I'm about where you are, from the time that I've played so far. And now we'll be playing, discussing, and kind of as a take on like the, a book study type idea, but why not games as a form of media and literature and such?
So do you guys end up discussing, obviously, the educational aspects of it, of how are you going to apply it to a classroom?
Yeah, good question there, because right now we have Zach. What's Zach's last name?
Hartzman, I think.
Zach Hartzman, who has written curriculum around the game and uses it in the classroom. So we have his insights there. We have Dr. Matthew Farber, who is all about game-based learning, and he was the one who initially recommended it. And we have Dr. Kelly Dunlap, who is a clinical psychologist and college professor who uses games extensively in her teaching. So yes, so the idea is like, where can these, and these are it's funny, I say deep games because they really are, but they allow for a lot of, really important conversations. And again, it's like, we look at these novels and we talk about the setting and the theme and the plot and the characterization and all of those things, and they all apply so beautifully to some of these games. So, we're just using it as a form of media.
It's funny, what I've liked about the game studies, both games, is that I guarantee you there are people that have played both of these games and just like jammed through them, went and played them, and not thought anything about the stuff that we're talking about. And that's what's so great about having, Paul and John and then Kelly and Matt and Zach on, is that these people are thinking deeply about these games, and there is depth to both of these games. And the funny thing about both of these games is that they're also fairly short. We played through Gone Home in just under 6 hours, and we'll play through Night in the Woods in about the same amount of time. But the actual depth of the content is astounding, to be completely honest. Even just in the stream we did today, there was it was like interrelational parental relationships. There was designer choice as far as how characters are perceived. There was a lot of talk about the main character herself, and like tons of really deep, interesting questions that are worth talking about. And you can see why a game like this is better called an interactive novel than almost anything.
So true.
And there's tons of depth to this game, which is amazing.
That is interesting when you bring that up too, about the type of game. Like, I think we've moved in such interesting directions with what a game can be in terms of the way it is experienced. Because you even think of, like, I remember when I first played any of the Telltale games, like Walking Dead. I felt like for me, I was involved in the story and the narrative rather than just consuming it, but yet it wasn't a whole lot of action. It was a lot of thought and decisions, and the decisions sometimes don't even really matter that much, but we talked today about how that does give the player agency, just being able to be involved in those decisions. And but I do think and like Mike said, some of the topics that you can get into with a lot of games is really meaningful. And it might be it's probably a good way for a lot of people to explore some of these tougher topics and, empathy and relatedness when it comes to like mental illness. Like, I think there's a lot of people who, can relate to what these characters are going through. And it kind of opens up this thing like, I'm always thinking that I'm, alone in this struggle, and when we can find an avenue to open up that dialogue, and we got to do it carefully. It's really great that we have somebody like Kelly involved, and I think you have to be careful as an educator not to just open up these big topics without thought and without possibly the support you need. But if done properly, it's really, well, definitely powerful.
So often, Steve, in schools, when we talk about social emotional learning or anything of these kind of very important but deep topics, I think a lot of districts reach out and have reached out in the past to kind of these canned curriculum things. And often those things are quickly rejected by our students because they can see right through them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They already know
Totally.
it's fake. And it's very difficult then also too for the educators because they don't believe in it either. So when you don't even believe in it, but you're expected to deliver something, it's really difficult. And that's the times when I think things like, obviously we've done it in the past with like literature, and now adapting that to, when you have like these English teachers, these literature teachers that are teaching these wonderful concepts in these novels, but then relating it back to the students' lives. Those are powerful moments. Those exact same moments are happening within these games. And that's the part where if you can pull those items and then be able to have those deep discussions with the kids in class, that's really the essence of like fantastic teaching and learning. But in this case too, using an actual game, as you just described, as not only an art form, but as a educational tool. And I think that's where, if people are listening to the podcast, they're like, I never could see a video game, a thing as this kind of thing where it could be used for those purposes. But my goodness, in so many cases it can, and the kids relate to it too. It's not something that they just dismiss. It's more like, hey, yeah, I want to talk about that more. Let's discuss that. And then it becomes then the conversation about them, not the game anymore, which is exactly the kind of stuff that we are expected as educators to do that, to check in with our kids. But it's super complex and difficult to do. I don't know if there's a question there, but
right. No. I was hanging on to your every word, Glenn, because I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the truth that we can use games as text. I think we've always been talking about how it's just a different form of media. And like you said, if we're able to reach our kids better that way,
yes,
that's where we need to be providing an opportunity. It doesn't mean we're not going to study literature, but it's a very valid form of narrative that, and text that, and art that should be, really leveraged in that way.
For sure. So Steve, if people want to go ahead and connect with you, they aren't already connected with you on social media, or they want to learn more about you and the things that you're actually working on, because there's so many amazing things that you just talked to our audience about, how can they connect with you?
So absolutely Twitter. I mean, that's my second home, or my first home. So it's at Mr. Mr. Isaacs, ISAACS on Twitter.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you guys. It was always good to be with you.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Participate, for supporting us. Check out participate.com to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome and see you soon.